You good, Chris?
Yeah, I'm good.
So Claudia, just first of all, tell us what you're doing here today.
Well, I just am welcoming our great House Minority Whip, Steve Scalise here, one of my colleagues from my time in the House of Representatives. He's actually a mentor and a personal hero of mine. He's a guy who survived almost a fatal shooting when he was just practicing in the congressional baseball for the congressional baseball game. And he's just been a terrific leader and a real supporter of mine, and I am so honored to welcome here at CMP and also in Binghamton. It's really great to have him here.
Now, why did you choose this location?
Well, I actually toured here before, and they invited us back and said we wanted to see you to see the progress that's going on here, and they're obviously doing very well through this crisis. So, really, great to see a local business doing well, and just seeing how they're doing. They've really benefited. They told us today, I didn't even ask, how great the tax cuts have worked for them and adding jobs and improving their profitability and also being able to do more for their employees. So it was good to hear that.
How important is the manufacturing sector in this district?
Well, it's critically important. I'm one of the manufacturers in this district, and we're struggling as well. But the tax cuts, rolling back unnecessary regulations, and a lot of the work we did with President Trump in bringing the Made in America message here, and also the USMCA and a number of things, not just with our manufacturing, but also for our family farms, which are a tradition here in this part of the country and this part of the state. So it's been critically important because we finally have a chance to grow in an economy where we need to grow against the onslaught of regulations and taxes and oppressive regulations and rules coming from Albany.
Yeah. So if you are elected again, what do you want to see done on behalf of the manufacturing sector?
Well, I'd like to see us enhance what we did before, continue to work on growing the economy by continuing to cut taxes, something that the Biden-Brindisi plan does not do. They're talking about raising taxes by $4 trillion, which is going to be devastating for upstate communities. We're going to be hit hard, especially in the midst of this COVID crisis, where now more than ever, we need to come out of this crisis and rebuild and grow our economy. So I'd like to see that happen. I'd also like us to get back on track where we were before, talking about bringing people back into the fold and talking about retraining people for these jobs, people who have now been displaced because of the COVID crisis, getting them back into the workforce, getting them back into making things again in this community. So I think it's critically important. This is where we're going to grow our economy, is right here in manufacturing.
What about small businesses in general? What would you do for them once you got elected?
Well, obviously, as a small business owner, we've been in this community, in this district, for over 75 years. One of the biggest problems we have is the high taxes and high regulations coming from Albany, and also just the real negative impact that a lot of the, Albany. I was in Albany. I know how difficult it is to deal with the governor and his shutdowns, but I think we need to come back safely. So again, taxes, regulations, helping us retrain a lot of people out here who we need to bring back into the workforce, who've been sidelined because of the COVID crisis and because of very bad policies. I have initiated the Made in America policy long before I got in Congress. I talked about combating China and the Chinese intervention. The president's tariffs turned out to work. We even heard about that from this group here. And also just rebuilding our farms, which is another manufacturer of sorts that people don't talk about. But our business finally saw a glimmer of hope from the work we did in Congress. All that has been erased mostly by the COVID crisis, and it's going to be absolutely devastated if we elect Brindisi and Joe Biden to raise taxes, increase regulations, and actually pass the Green New Deal. Already we know that Anthony Brindisi is opposed to responsible gas drilling. He's voted numerous times to ban it, along with Governor Cuomo. Another real problem they have is health care. And as an employer with over 50 employees, we're required to comply with the ACA, which is failing. Obamacare has really hurt our business. We pay so much for health care, but we don't actually have access to our doctor. We basically are buying a plastic insurance card, and we're doing everything we can to make sure our employees get access, but it's very costly, and it's a drag on our wages. So people are paying so much, and we are paying so much in healthcare costs. We need to fix this. Medicare for all, which Anthony Brindisi voted for and backed, is not the solution. That's what Joe Biden, that's what Anthony Brindisi are supporting. That will devastate small businesses across this region. And this election is more critical now than ever. We need someone who's going to go work with the president. When I served in Congress, I actually didn't, when I disagreed with the president, I called him. I asked the president for help, and people like Steve Scalise and our leadership team came to the rescue. We made sure we brought historic resources to this district. Anthony Brindisi's answer was to go and vote to impeach the president, and he got rewarded for that. It was very lucrative to impeach the president. Nancy Pelosi and the left-wing types in California, New York City, and across the country rewarded him with millions of dollars in campaign cash. They also gave him some bills and committee assignments that he wanted, that he's messaging to make people think that he's actually done something. But it's really interesting that Steve and I worked in what was considered one of the most productive and best Congresses in decades. Anthony Brindisi is now part of one of the most obstructionist and least productive Congresses that we've seen probably in 50 years under the leadership and poor leadership, I would say, of Nancy Pelosi. So this is a critically important election. New York State is a great incubator for it. You're going to see a choice between literally chaos and law and order, and you're going to see a choice between rebuilding our small business community or a complete government takeover, which is going to just blot out our small business community and our job creators. And this is a real choice. It's going to be communism, or it's going to be a chance for everyone to have entrepreneurial growth. In the middle of this issue, too, something that Steve probably doesn't have to deal with in Louisiana as much, but in that bill, nothing to do with COVID ID, was to ban voter ID across the nation. And that is something that is a huge issue in New York State, as you saw with the close elections and now the mail-at-home ballots and some of these things that are happening. We need integrity for each person that votes, and banning voter ID undermines the integrity of our elections. Why is that in a COVID relief bill? You know, that's the kind of stuff that they put a Democratic wish list into these bills instead of directly dealing with what we need. And I got to be honest with you, I'm walking around with farmers and doing Zoom calls and actually meeting with people every day, and the farmers are terrified of the fact that they're not getting the relief, that Brindisi voted to cut the relief for farmers while he claims he's supporting farmers. They're also telling me they're terrified of some of the tax plan policy coming out of the Biden-Brindisi team that's going to devastate our farmers in this region. You know, while he claims he's a member of the Ag Committee, that's what I'm hearing from people. And they really need relief. I go around this district and I see businesses that are closed permanently now. And they cannot wait for Nancy Pelosi to decide, oh, I'm going to wait till after the election before I do anything, because she wants the American people to suffer and to be hurt. Brindisi should be down in D.C. right now, fighting with Steve Scalise and everyone else who's down there trying to help the American people and their families and family businesses. This district is made up mostly of family businesses. My family business is struggling. All of us are struggling. We need help, and we need Washington to act, not to wait for Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi to put out their Democratic wish list before we actually get relief. It is dire straits right now. And if you do stories around this district, you're going to hear that from farmers, small businesses, banquet halls, restaurant owners. These people pay taxes. It's imperiling our local governments, our school districts. Everybody is suffering because Nancy Pelosi and Anthony Brindisi and Chuck Schumer are refusing to get this done. It was great to work with Steve. He's a hard charger. Obviously he's an amazing guy. He survived, almost a fatal shooting. And, he's still strong on our Second Amendment rights. He's a strong conservative. And he's out here every day. I mean, this is amazing that he's willing to come to Binghamton to show how important this seat is and how important it is that we get things done in Washington and not listen to the noise of the Democrats. And I think that's what, really is at stake here.